Can we give another round of applause for these incredible films? All right, I would like to ask our filmmakers, if they're in the audience, if they could come on up to the front. First of all, I want to thank you all so much for being out here today. I know there's a lot going on, but thank you so much for taking the time to come see these incredible films. I want to first introduce Nader. He is the writer, the co-director, and also the actor of Voice Box. And then let me see if one of these other microphones is on. Would you like to?
Sure.
Take this as well. You can introduce yourself, say what film you're with, and your role in the film.
Sure. My name is David Grabius, and I made You.Sleep.Stay. Yeah. And then.
Hello, I am Delbert, and I am the consultant for this film as well. Is this on?
It is on, yeah, just a little far. You want to hold the mic?
I'm not sure. Just sorry. It's on. I can hear it. That's better. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So Nader wanted me to help him share his words today. So he wrote out a speech, and he said, this is a deeply emotional speech, and it basically encapsulates why he made this film. Ready to share? Okay. He says, thank you to everyone who helped make this film possible. Thank you to my family for believing in me and for loving me. Thank you, Jesus, for providing me with the strength and courage because I am nothing without you. Thank you, Jesus, for teaching me how to truly love and keeping my heart joyful despite the hurt I've endured. This film is for the baby who wasn't supposed to live, for the kid who saw his body grow weaker, for the teenager who wore a hood due to feeling like a burden, even though everyone told him that he was not, for the man who never gives up because he understands God has something in store for him. This film is for me, who finally understands that he deserves love. I once felt I didn't deserve friends, but prayed that I would. I met people who changed my entire perspective on myself. Those friendships I hold dear to my heart. You are all blessings in my life. I'm saying this because I understand what it's like to feel like an outcast. I understand the hurt that comes with being disabled. You believe the lie that you're a burden. My life isn't a tragedy, but a beautiful testimony. My words may mean nothing, or they might be something you need to hear. Disabled people, you are not a burden. You are a blessing. Jesus loves you. You deserve to be with people. You don't have to be alone. I don't have to be alone. You are loved. I am loved. You are able. I am able. And thank you so much, Nader, for sharing that beautiful words that, like you said, perfectly encapsulates your heart behind that film, because I felt so much heart in just watching David's journey of finding love and finding his voice and expressing his voice. So thank you so much for telling your story. Yes. So next, I want to ask you, David, what led you to Fred's story and what made you want to bring it to life on screen?
So Fred's brother's son became my brother-in-law, and so I got to meet Fred through that, and they told me about this place that Fred lived in, and they told me about Fred, and they showed me some pictures, and I just thought it was really I didn't know that anything like that existed, that an
Right.
institution like that existed.
Right.
And I also thought there was something really powerful in trying to tell a story about communication
Right.
and about an individual who has been deprived of communication in their
Yeah.
life.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love about BraveMaker is that we believe in brave films. And every voice does matter. Everyone's story matters. And both with your film and Nader with your film as well, that's what I felt. I felt a celebration of voices and a celebration of brave stories of people not being afraid to share their voice or gaining the confidence to share their voice.
Yeah.
So my question for both of you is, what did you learn in the process of bringing these films to life? You want to start with you?
Sure. I don't know, I learned a lot. I mean, I had never spent time with an individual like Fred
Absolutely.
before. And
Yeah.
so being able to be in his space and learn to communicate with him and learn what life is for him, what it means for him, was such a beautiful and mind-blowing and
Absolutely.
educational experience, truly. Um, and then I was privileged to work with Delbert and
Yeah.
others, um, and it was incredibly educational trying to think about how not only to make sure that the film was accessible with captions,
Right.
open captions for all audiences, but how to think about those captions with Fred.
Yeah.
How do you think what part of Fred's, his verbalizations, for example, as that part of his communication, and
Right.
how do we honor that, or how do we represent that? And I was lucky enough to have met and to have had Delbert's help with
Absolutely.
that process. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing that you were saying about the captions, I loved that when you were hearing from Fred's perspective, I love that you pixelated the captions to really show what he was hearing and feeling in those moments. So I thought that was beautifully done.
Thank you. That was, yeah, I don't know if I can take credit, but someone had that good
Yeah,
idea.
whoever
Yeah.
wanted to, yeah, that was amazingly well done. Delbert, did you have anything you wanted to add about something that you learned in the process?
Yes. Oops. Before I go ahead and do that, I'm going to have to move the interpreter over to the other side.
Okay.
Just a moment for accessibility needs. We're going to move the interpreter. One moment.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Much better. So this film, I was thinking of a few things to consider. I was looking at the camera angles, and I want to make sure the audience has accessibility, and also that I'm in a good place to be able to join the conversation.
absolutely.
So I think it's working now. Does this work for everybody having the interpreter here? Cameras and so forth.
Thank you for that.
So one thing I love about this film is that it was quite a challenge thinking about visual communication here and vocal. These are different aspects to consider as well. So David was right. Fred, we were using, there were paper and pictures were used. Nonverbal communication wasn't used in the beginning. It was paper and pictures. So he was definitely using his voice as part of his communication. He was verbalizing, and that had intent, and there was meaning behind that. The gestures were also important and had meaning behind them. So he was using a number of things to express himself. The issue is we don't understand him. Fred understands what he's trying to say. He knows what he's trying to communicate. And that was the first point that I found important. Fred also is really lucky to have MJ, the interpreter in the film, to have that level of support. Mm-hmm. That's something that he should have had from childhood,
Absolutely.
from the get-go. Yeah. And it's something that was absent from his life. And MJ really, as a deaf interpreter, really captured and caught things that others missed. So that was a big part, I think, also. And that was a big part of being brave.
Absolutely.
Additionally, we discussed a lot of how to use captioning to express and honor Fred's way of communicating.
Yeah.
One thing that we discussed quite a bit was deaf people in general, in deaf culture, typically there can be sensitivity about how deaf people's voice is represented. One of the things that is most important is that when deaf people experience bullying, which happens frequently growing up, it's based on how they sound and how hearing people understand their speech. And so there's quite a bit of trauma associated with, bullying experiences growing up, being bullied. So when we were trying to honor Fred's communication and also provide access for audiences, we were trying to walk that fine line of what is enough and what is too much. And I think we found a nice happy medium that really honored Fred's way of speaking and communicating, and also showed that visually on the film. To muffle the captioning also gave representation of Fred's perspective in the world and how he perceives things. I loved how MJ, who's also deaf, it discussed the concept about deafness is not just about, quote unquote, turning down the volume. There's a range of things that people can hear, and some things you can't hear. For example, I can hear higher pitch sounds. So voices with higher pitch have an easier time for me. I have an easier time with them than lower pitched voices. And I can maybe make out some sounds in different places, but not all. So the captioning was an intelligent way of reflecting that concept and how we experience the world as a deaf person.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Nader. I'm going to read. Nader says, I learned to be able to accept myself more. It's been a struggle, and during the process, I still struggle with loving myself more. So I'm starting to do that. I learned how to work with people out of state as well, since I made this in Las Vegas. And it has always been about communicating with each other so we can make sure it landed perfectly when I traveled to Vegas. It's a team effort in all fronts. We only did the shooting in less than 48 hours. Filmmaking is very important to me. That's amazing that you made the film in less than 48 hours. That's incredible. That's incredible. Yes, please give it up for them. I want to open up questions to the audience. If anyone has questions, you can just raise your hand and we'll have someone come around and bring a microphone.
Thank you both so much for both your films. They're stunningly beautiful. My question is around the pacing, David, of your film. It's one of the things I've always admired about what you do, is you let the story unfold in a very unhurried way, and you resist whatever temptation you may or may not have to explain, and you allow the people in your film to make evident what the meaning and the experience that you are trying to get across. So my question is, do you ever grapple with this sense that you should move faster, explain more, or is that a natural process? And can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah, thank you. I think first and foremost, one of the most wonderful and beautiful parts for me about being a documentary filmmaker is you go out and you film all this stuff and you think that it is one way, and then you get into the edit bay, and then you have to literally Men in Black brainwash yourself and forget everything that you know about it, and then look at the images. And I'm blessed to work with this editor, Edgar Sardarian, who has incredible patience. And he and I, we just sit there and we watch the material, and anything that moves us, we keep, or we try to keep, we start to work with. And and so often what moves you is some gesture that someone makes, or some very small thing, or it's not the expected narrative or some superimposed thing. It's something coming from in there. So I think that's number one, and that ends up meaning that the shots linger a little bit longer because you need to feel that energy that they're resonating. I think for this film in particular, Fred operates, his sense of time is like, he's like the Buddha, right? He is so present. He's not thinking about the past. He's not thinking about the future. He is very much in the moment. And again, it was important to kind of really feel that, to be with him. You know, I mean, his life for 70 years was in 100 square feet or yards or whatever it is. It was just in that one building. And so really deliberately walking with him from one space to the other, you know, and being, and patiently, you know, he walks slowly, being patient with all that stuff, I think was another thing. And then lastly, there is always a pressure to cut it faster, right? Like, I think that is, especially in today's world, thanks TikTok generation, not to point fingers, but you know, there's always a pressure. And so I think what we end up doing is leaving it as long, and you know, you leave, and I'm sure anyone who's made films, yourself included, has done, you know, you leave it on as long as as people can stand it, basically. And then when they start to get annoyed, or they start to think, why am I watching this for so long? Then you have to think about cutting. But yeah, and I think, again, with this film was a particularly special one because, again, you know, how do you film Fred, right? Like, where is the camera? How do you keep the film from objectifying or exploiting him, right? How do we make him a collaborator in the filmmaking process so that he can direct us as much as possible, right? You give him a sense of agency, which in a world where he can't tell us, you know, becomes a very complicated question. But so again, a lot of that was meant that the shots were longer and that we really, you know, were in his time and space as much as possible.
I love that.
I have a question for the.
I'd like to add something to that before we move on from that point. This is Delbert. I just want to say that it's really a good indication of a filmmaker who, from an outside perspective, can capture someone's experience differently than their own. That resistance to temptation of being exploitative or jumping the gun, really focusing on the subject and the truth of the individual and what's happening around them, and being willing to collaborate with an individual or people from that experience or culture and incorporate them in the idea of that, really honoring their experience and perspective, is the true life experience, as a true life experience. And I think that, you know, David was successful in doing that in this film. So I think that, just to point that out, that's very important in general.
I love that. I love that. And even in the description, I saw that you're making the filmmaker a part of the process rather than someone who is just capturing the story. So I really love that you included that as well.
Included myself in the film, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I think there's another question here, and then we can go here and here.
I had a question for Nader as well, if that is okay. Although your film was narrative, it too had the same quality of being very open-ended and allowing us as viewers to engage in a question rather than an answer in terms of what this film is about. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that and how much I enjoyed the fact that I was allowed the opportunity to give myself as many possibilities for what the film contains.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a question for each of you, a little bit more about the production process. First, Nader, to you, did you said you shot this in 48 hours. Was it really clear to you what this story was? And was there a tight script and all that? Or did it kind of, some of it emerge afterwards in the editing process? And David, to you, how did your relationship with Fred evolve. And I'm just curious, did he, because you see that, and, you see him looking at you and it's smiling and making gestures. And I just wanted to know more about that because you spent a lot of time in production. Thanks.
You want to answer first?
Sure. Yeah, we filmed over, it was probably 18 months on and off. And yeah, and for me, again, the most challenging part was getting to a place where I felt that Fred understood what I was doing and why we were there and appreciated it, where I felt like we were hanging out, right? And because it took so long for us to find a way to communicate with him, to understand truly, how he was communicating, was doing, it just took a while. You'll appreciate this. So, I'd never met him. I'd talked to his brother, John, who you see in the film, and John had given me permission as his legal guardian to go and meet Fred. And so I go to Pennsylvania. I have 3 days planned. I bring a camera, but I'm just going to go hang out with Fred and meet him and get to know him. And because it's COVID, they won't let me meet Fred inside. I have to sit outside, and Fred's going to come outside to me. And so I'm sitting outside. I can see the door, right? And if you recall from the film, the door is glass. There's a big window in the door. And so I show up at, 10:30, 11. The staff knows I'm coming. They bring Fred to the door. He looks out the door, and he goes, and he turns around. He doesn't come out. And I sit there for an hour, and then the staff come out, and they're like, I'm really sorry, but he doesn't want to come out. He doesn't know you. Yeah. I sat there for 3 days. And each day he would come to the window, twice a day, like 10:30 and 2, because I'm determined. Yeah. 3 days, he never comes outside. And it wasn't until the next trip where I was able to go inside into the common room that you see him meet his brother in the beginning. And they wheeled Fred into the room, and so I was able to go up and start interacting with him, and we began a relationship at that point. But I mean, this is an example, it's like, how do you convince him that I'm not gonna be a bad person or do something bad or whatever it is? But it took a long time. And at this point I love him. I really do. I get choked up when I think about him.
Yeah, the patience was worth it. You built their relationship out of it. Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. And I'll read Nader's response. Nader says, yes, it was a very tight script. The ending was more so added on because originally it was supposed to end with him opening his mouth, but we decided to let it end with, hey, Rachel, to make it more bookended. I also cut scenes that I felt ruined the pacing and didn't add anything during the editing process. Overall, it was very tight. I love that. I love the ending. I thought the ending was perfect because you saw him saying that so many times throughout the film. So I love that that's the final moment that we had and we got to see Rachel's face along with it. I love that. Great job. All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I'm so sorry for the questions we didn't get to. Are you able to hang around for a few minutes you're able to hang around for a few minutes? If you do still have questions, the filmmakers are able to hang around for a few additional minutes that you can talk to them. But thank you again. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who came out to the screenings. There are more on the way, so if you're able to stick around, please do. Have a great day. Thank you so much for supporting BraveMaker, and I'll see you around the festival.